Tonight, if you sat down to dinner in Paris, Bangkok, or New Orleans, you might eat a frog. Millions of people do, every day. Crisped legs, garlic butter, a genuine delicacy across 5 continents. Put a toad on that same plate and people recoil. Some would call it dangerous. Some would call it insane. And here's the strange part. Most of them couldn't tell you why. They just know. Somewhere in your head, without anyone ever sitting you down to explain it, you've already sorted these 2 animals into separate boxes. One is food, one is poison, except that split is nowhere near as clean as it feels. Some frogs can kill you in minutes. Some toads have been eaten for centuries. So whatever your brain is reacting to when it flinches, it isn't quite what you think. And the real answer isn't about frogs or toads at all. It's about a warning system running inside your own head. One you've relied on your entire life without ever noticing it was there. Start with the assumption everyone carries. Frogs are smooth and safe. Toads are bumpy and dangerous. Simple. It isn't even taxonomically true. Frogs and toads aren't separate groups. A toad is just a frog, specifically a frog that evolved dry, warty skin. And that skin isn't a cosmetic accident. It's armor. Behind a toad's eyes sit 2 raised lumps called the parotoid glands. Press one, even by accident, and it secretes a milky toxin. That toxin is bufotoxin, named after Bufo, the toad genus. A predator that bites down on a toad gets a mouthful of chemical warfare. Dogs have died from simply mouthing a single cane toad. Some toad species carry enough to stop a human heart. So the warty skin isn't ugly by chance. It's a billboard. It's your eye reading danger before the conscious part of your brain has finished the thought. But now the rule breaks, because frogs are supposed to be the safe ones. And some frogs are among the deadliest animals alive. Deep in the rainforests of Colombia lives a frog barely the size of a paperclip, bright yellow, almost luminous. The golden poison frog. Its skin produces a compound called batrachotoxin, and a single frog carries enough of it to kill around 10 grown men. Indigenous hunters used it for generations, wiping the tips of blow darts across the frog's back. One graze was enough to drop a bird out of the air or stop a large animal mid-stride. And that creature is not a toad. It's classified as a frog. So the frog good, toad bad rule you grew up trusting just fell apart in front of you. Here's what was actually going on the whole time. It was never the species label. It's the skin. Slimy, moist skin usually means little toxin or none. Most of the frogs you'd find near a pond. Dry, bumpy, warty skin usually means glands loaded with chemical defense. Most toads. That's a real pattern, and a useful one. But evolution doesn't respect our tidy categories. Some frogs evolved exactly the defenses toads did, keeping the smooth appearance while quietly building the deadly biochemistry underneath. The poison dart frogs are the proof, which tells you something about the rule in your head. Smooth is safe, bumpy is dangerous. That isn't knowledge. It's a shortcut. A rough guess your ancestors made long before any laboratory existed to check it. And a guess like that carries consequences. In 1935, Australian sugarcane farmers had a beetle problem, and someone had an idea. Import a South American toad that eats beetles. They released a little over 100 cane toads into the wild. The beetles barely noticed. The toads did something else entirely. They bred. Today there are an estimated 200 million cane toads across Australia, and everyone carries bufotoxin in those parotoid glands. The native predators, quolls, snakes, goannas, had evolved to hunt frogs, not chemically armed invaders. They bit down expecting a meal and got a lethal dose instead. Across the regions the toads spread through, entire populations of native predators collapsed. One human decision, one toad species, an ecosystem thrown into chaos because nobody respected the warning sitting right there on the animal's skin. And yet humans haven't always avoided toads either. In parts of southern China, a particular species has been eaten for generations, but only after an exacting process. The skin is removed completely. The parotoid glands are cut away first with surgical care. Miss a single gland or let any toxin touch the meat, and the result isn't a stomach ache. It's cardiac arrest. Hospitals in Guangdong and Guangxi still report toad poisoning cases most years, usually from home cooks who trusted their own hands a little too much. So even in the one place where toad is treated as food, it's handled like a small warty explosive. That isn't primal disgust. That's inherited knowledge, passed down like a recipe. Except the recipe is really a survival protocol. So what killed the idea of eating toads almost everywhere else? Not taste, not texture, risk math? For most species, frogs offered protein at almost no danger. Toads offered protein wrapped around a coin flip with death. And across thousands of years and thousands of cultures that never once spoke to each other, humans arrived at the same verdict independently. Eat the frog, leave the toad. That's not coincidence. That's convergent behavior. The same survival pressure solving the same problem over and over on separate continents. And here's where it stops being about amphibians and starts being about you, because you run this exact system every single day. Val Curtis, a researcher who spent years studying the psychology of disgust, mapped what actually makes humans recoil. Rotting food, bodily fluids, skin lesions, wrong textures. What she found is that disgust isn't random squeamishness. It's a disease avoidance system, hardwired by evolution, running quietly in the background of your mind at all times. You don't consciously decide something looks off. Your brain flags it before you can explain why. That warty skin on a toad trips the same ancient alarm that makes you gag at spoiled milk or yank your hand back from something slimy and wrong. Nobody taught you to fear a toad's skin. You inherited that fear from every ancestor who touched the wrong thing and didn't survive to teach a different lesson. And notice how fast it fires. Faster than language, faster than logic. You see the bumps, and something says no before your conscious mind has even loaded the word toxin. That isn't weakness, and it isn't superstition. It's millions of years of natural selection compressed into a half-second reaction. The people who overrode that instinct, who reached for the wrong warty creature, ate the wrong berry, touched the wrong skin, largely didn't get to raise children. The ones who trusted the flinch did. You're descended entirely from the second group. So every time your skin crawls at something bumpy, wet, or strangely colored, you're not being irrational. You're hearing a message relayed to you down an unbroken chain of survivors, stretching back further than written history. And it was never only about frogs and toads. It's every snap judgment you make all day without noticing. The stranger whose smile feels slightly wrong. The food that smells almost fine, but not quite. The path through the woods that feels like the wrong one to take. You call it a gut feeling. Researchers call it an evolved heuristic. It's the same machinery, the one that separated frog from toad on every dinner table on Earth for thousands of years without a single lab test. So the next time something makes your skin crawl for no reason, you can don't dismiss it too quickly. That reaction isn't your imagination in overdrive, and it isn't baseless fear. It's an ancient survival algorithm, refined by every ancestor who lived long enough to produce you. Every wart your eye has ever flinched from, every warning your body handed you before your mind caught up, that isn't a flaw in how you think. It might be the oldest, most thoroughly tested thing you own, and most of us never even knew it was still running.